Howdy, folks. Bad Mark here with MechTech and wishing you a happy weekend. Hopefully, everybody's doing well out there in keyboard world. And today, we're going to talk about tactile switches. Now, tactile switches are the switch that are kind of in the middle ground between what is a clicky switch, a switch that purposely makes a click, usually either through a click jacket or a spring bar, or a tactile one that actually has a bump on the stem, so when it hits the leaf stem you can actually feel that bump. Now, this isn't an original, this is a clone of one of the most prized tactiles out there called the Holy Panda, which was originally made using the stem from either a Halo Clear or a Halo True, which would be this color, with the body of a panda. And it made for, I'm sure you can hear that nice tactility. I mean, you hear the bump at the end. It's basically the long stem of the long post stem. It's actually bottoming out, and that's what's creating that click. Now, depending on what keyboard you use this in, it'll either go more high pitched or more low pitched. But this is definitely what's considered the high end. Now, I like Franken switching, so just for giggles and fun, I took one of these Fecker Holy Pandas and actually switched out the stem from a regular panda. Because the regular pandas, you can switch them out and put them in like dirty yaks. Also make a version of the dirty Holy Panda, or dirty pandas, whatever they're called. I can't keep up with all the names. But this is the Fecker stem inside of a panda housing. Notice it's not that loud. It has that tap, but it's not quite as loud. But then we have the stem from the panda inside of the Holy Panda, or the Fecker body. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference, but it's a little bit louder and a little bit deeper, actually, right off the end. Then I made one just for fun. I took a Halo Clear stem, and I took the body of a Milky Gatoron Black. Why aren't you focusing? And I put the Halo Clear stem inside of here, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. It's a little higher pitched and a little muted, but for some reason the tactility feels a little bit better. And obviously you can tell the spring weights on these, so that's a lighter spring in there. I didn't change the springs. I think that definitely changing the springs changes tactility. That's definitely for sure when it comes to the Akko ones. Now, this is the Akko Sponge, which, as I've read, is basically just a recolored box stem version of the Lavender. These both have dual stage springs in them, so that you have a bump on the down and a bump on the up. And it actually, they do have a bit of a deeper sound to them, although it's not as loud. But that two-stage, so now those are the dual stage, or the dual stage spring Akko tactiles. But there's also the Ocean Blue. Now this one is a single stage spring, and it's a much lighter spring, so it doesn't make as much of a noise. And the bump, while being there, is very subtle. This is almost a brown. It's a little bit more tactile than a brown is, but just by the tiniest amount. So if you just want a little bit of tactility, these are good go-tos. Now, I want to just go ahead and get these out of the way. I'm not a fan of box style switches. There, I said it. Kailh came up with this system for creating box switches, which I've got my opener over here, and I am just not the fondest of how these things are made. For one, it's completely not an MX switch anymore. Yes, you still have the spring, but now you have that tiny little box in there with that button. So, and if you knock that box off and you lose that button, forget about it. It's done. The switch is done. Also, when it comes to lubing it, you actually have to lube it. Well, I lube it mine a different way. I lube them upside down because it's just ridiculous because there's no channel there to really get in there. Now that, just as an example, see, I went to go put it back together. You see what happened there? The box of the button just came off. Now, see, there's the button, but now I'm going to have to try to fit it in here. No. Okay. And this is where we come into the whole reason why I hate these things. See, I was just closing it. I didn't even lube it. I didn't even lube it. And I found the easiest way. Although I've spent way too much time trying to get these things put back together. It has to go into this tiny little slot there. This is not a good design, folks. Kailh, I don't know what you guys were thinking when you guys came up with this. I don't know if you guys thought you were being cool or something, but this is a crap design. I will never purposely order these. I have gotten some through the NK mystery switches, but honestly, that's one of the reasons I don't buy them anymore, because I don't want to get any more box style switches, because these are not what I would consider your standard switch. And like I said, trying to put these things together, back together, is like a puzzle piece, especially if you have a condition such as mine. So, putting the spring back in, which barely fits. Not even going to bother oiling it. Put the housing top, and then well, I actually got it to still work, because it's clicking, then it's still working. So anyway, this is the Royal Purple, the Kailh Royal Purple, and it has a very slight actuation. The bump on this is actually just slightly, it's closer to the blue, I would say, or even the brown. But it doesn't have much of a tone, and it's very high pitched. Now, this is the Hako Royal Clear, which is supposed to be a better version of their tactile switch. But the actuation, I do feel a stronger bump. It does have a heavier spring in it, but it doesn't have much of a sound. It really doesn't. And I think that a big part of the fun of the tactile switches is not only the feel, but having that feedback with the noise, but it not being clicky. So it's kind of like, I'm not loud like a clicking on purpose. I'm making a noise to report back that I have actuated properly. So these Fecker Holy Pandas, I highly recommend them. They can be found fairly cheap. I've seen bags of 110. I think I got my bag of 110 for, I want to say $31 ship, $32 ship. So it's fairly good, well priced. But so putting these aside, if you don't want to, we want to go the budget route. I want to talk about these two. Now, I had previously, I did a sound test with this one. This is a peach. It's a linear. It comes from Ajazz. This is actually an extremely nice linear. And when you buy these, depending on where you buy them from, anywhere from 22 to 27 cents a piece. So they're definitely in the budget range, and they perform great. But they have these diced fruit series, which comes with the peach, the kiwi, and the banana. Now, it's funny because usually when you have a series of three, usually one's going to be a clicky, one's going to be a tactile, one's going to be a linear. Here they went a little bit different. They decided to go with the one linear and then two different types of tactile. Now, the kiwi, I've got to say, I mean, just from an aesthetics point of view, it's great. I've never seen, or I personally have never had another switch that actually had sparkles mixed into the polycarbonate before it was actually shaped. So that's actually, it's kind of cute, but that's aesthetics. What about, what does it sound like? You hear that? It's a nice bump. It's not the heaviest, it's not the lightest, but that's a nice deep sound. It is not high pitched. It's actually nice, deep, and solid. It sounds firm. So I was actually surprised when I got these. I had the bananas for a while, but I hadn't really given them a chance. Now they're a little bit more high pitched, and the bump is a little less pronounced. These are closer to, I would say, the Akko blue, but still more pronounced than a brown. Any of these are more pronounced than a brown, even the box springs. But this has a much higher spring, much higher pitch, but a lower spring weight. So it's possible that adding a heavier spring into this might actually change, because I mean, these are both, now granted this does have a what looks like a palm bottom, or it could be nylon, with a PC top. So while this one is PC top and bottom, but this Kiwi is definitely one. So if you guys are looking for tactiles, I've got to say that although Akko still remains, in my book, one of the kings when it comes to budget switches at a decent price. I practically have all but a couple of the Akko the series switches, both Jelly and the CS. There's just a few just with lighter springs that I just haven't gotten around to, because big fan. Like I said, right now I'm kind of in the world between linear and tactile, and I like them both. I did start out with clickies, as a lot of people did, but I have found that I enjoy linears, but I also enjoy tactiles. I enjoy that little bit of noise. Now, granted, I do work from my home office, so I don't have anybody else sitting in the room, so as long as I'm not annoyed, that's all fine. So I just wanted to take this chance to kind of introduce maybe some people that didn't know about these tactiles. But if you have not given Akkos a chance because, they're too cheap, don't dismiss them because of the price. Like I like to say on the subreddit, Budget Keeps, we're not talking about cheap things. We're talking about things that stay within a certain budget. And you can get things that are budget priced, that are well built. And that's what I try to focus on. I don't know, it's not called cheap budgets or cheap keys. It's called budget keeps. Keyboards done at a budget. That doesn't mean that, everybody's budget is the same. Somebody's budget might be $300, $400. What can they get for their budget complete? Because people are like, well, the kit is only, well, you still got to think of all the accessories, the externals that you're going to have to buy, from the tools to the lube to whatever you're going to use to modify or fill the board, or yada yada yada. I mean, it's from stands to containers to store your switches to more key cap. It goes on and on. This is a rabbit hole. So anyone getting into this, if you don't want to spend any money, run, because this is a hobby that will. I've become very passionate about it in just the last. It's been over a year now, but I've learned a lot, and I like sharing this knowledge, and I've grown a lot through this process, and I've actually found that I got over Legos when I was probably in my early teens, but this is very similar to Legos, but it brings calm, brings peace to me when I'm sitting and just working on a keyboard. It's just me on the keyboard, and I actually lower my blood pressure, and have found this to be healthy for me. So I hope that it's brings a similar level of positivity to other folks out there. But like I said, these in case you had not seen these Ajazz switches, like I said, they have these. They're called the Diced Fruit series. They come in these cute little containers, although they're pretty soft, and they're just tiny. They put 45 in here, and they put a single one in the box loose. Why, I don't know. But But like I said, I have the peach linear, the banana, and the kiwi. Notice how the kiwi is a deeper tone. So now let's go to the Akkos. Now, like I said, the Akko Sponge is supposed to be a recolored lavender, and it does, to me, it feels and it sounds almost exactly the same. This is the lavender, and this is the sponge. Sponge actually seems to have a slightly higher pitch than the lavender, but it's so close it's hard to determine. But then we have the Akko Blue. They all have a really nice tone. Just like I said, these two have the dual stage spring, so you have the bump on the up and down. So, but I mean, these are the same spring weight, but I don't know if it's because of the box, but see, it seems to be heavier. Oh, see how the bump, you can actually see that bump. And it's very, this one is, you can feel the bump very truly with both of these. More so, I think, because I think there's more surface area on the sponge. But the Akko, for someone who wants just a light tactile but wants to have that little bit of noise, I mean, I would call this the baby panda, baby blue panda, because I mean, just as it is, because it's similar. It's not as, the bump is not as accentuated, but it's there and you can definitely feel it. And the tone, I mean, it's kind of close. This is the Fecker Holy Panda. This is the Akko Blue, Ocean Blue. Fecker Holy Panda, Ocean Blue. So they're similar in tone and the bump, the weaker on the blue. I believe that if you put a heavier spring in here, I want to say this one's a 43 gram spring, and this one's a 50 with a 60 bottom now. So I believe that if you put a heavier spring in there, that you would get a deeper tone. But like I said, I just wanted to go over some of these switches. I do like Franken switching a lot. If I had a whole warehouse of switches, I would probably be making switches all day long. But I think I'm actually going to make a batch of these because I have a whole pack of clears, 90 clears, and I have a whole bunch of milkies. So I think I'm going to take some milky blacks and turn them into these milky pandas, I guess they're called. I know somebody else has done these before, but I do like the look of them. I like the way that it's frosted all the way through. So anyway, next I'm going to go ahead and go into, I did most of these switches. I didn't do the clear. I didn't do the sponge because I've actually Franken switched the sponge. I got the Fecker, I believe. I got both of these. Well, I'm going to do sound tests of the ones that I actually loaded up into some boards so that you guys can get an idea of what these sound like, and these will be coming up